Welcome to Spectrum Sundays. I am Megan Sinisi, Miss Pennsylvania 2021, and the founder of a nonprofit organization for autism titled From a New Perspective. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University of Missouri.
And I am Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands of New York, serving my community through AAA appreciation and awareness for autism. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University at Buffalo.
Everyone deserves to feel accepted and included in every space they walk in. Our series aims to inspire you to advocate for yourself and on behalf of your loved ones, and we are so grateful that you're here with us today.
Anita Young is an educator and the mother of two children, Mia and Lincoln. She holds a bachelor's degree in Spanish education from Mansfield University, a master's degree in Instructional Technology from Wilkes University, and is currently working towards her principal's certification at Point Park University. Anita is a dual citizen of the US and Portugal and is trilingual in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. In 2018, Anita's daughter, Mia, was diagnosed with autism. Anita and her husband quickly immersed Mia in therapies to support her needs, which they have seen a great deal of success. In that time frame, Anita also connected with the Central PA Autism Community and continues to support the group by organizing, coordinating, and producing marketing information for community events. Anita has also partnered with community members in Huntington County to offer several sensory-friendly events as well as accessible community playground equipment for all children. As Anita and her husband, Matt, prepare to navigate Mia's transition to kindergarten this fall, they continue to work as a team within their family and with professionals to support Mia's progress and success. So thank you again for having us and having this conversation with us. We learned so much from you last time, and we're really excited to share more about you and your children.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. So I look forward to sharing a little more.
We talked a lot about Mia's diagnosis and daily life with autism. But what are some things that you enjoy doing together as a family, especially now that it's summer? What are some things that you have planned?
So we do a lot. We stay busy. And I think one of our favorite summer activities is Mia's grandfather, my father-in-law. He has a swimming pool. So we love to go swimming. The kids really do enjoy that. And we just like to go places. We like to do things. So we go to zoos, we go to theme parks, we just went glamping. I don't do camping. Glamping this past week. We go out to, we are big Pittsburgh Pirates fans. We are a big family. We love our Pirates, our Buccos. So we do at least one game a month, usually throughout the summer. So we go see friends. A lot of our family's in New Jersey, so we go out to New Jersey. Yeah, we've gone to Disney. So we've definitely done some trips, and we are planning for a trip 2 years from this summer to Europe. Mia really wants to go see the Eiffel Tower. And mommy's not going to deny her that opportunity. So we are planning for a trip in Europe and to visit some family as well. So we are looking forward to that.
That is so exciting. Do you have an extra room for?
Yeah. Stick you in my bag, Megan. Yeah.
Gladly go with you. My family has been trying to plan a trip to Italy for years now. My parents celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary 2 years ago now.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to get to Italy. So maybe we'll end up there around the same time.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. We're hoping things kind of calm down, and 2 years from now they'll be at a good age where I don't have to lug car seats and strollers and all that other stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, that's so exciting that you can do all those things as a family. And I'm sure now that the world has started to open up a little bit, you're making up for a little bit of lost time and filling some things in there to make some exciting events for this summer. And you mentioned in the last episode about the Central PA Autism Community awarding a lot of those different sensory friendly events for not only children with autism, but their families as well. So
yeah, absolutely. We enjoy attending those as well. I think not even just for Mia, but for myself to kind of network with some parents too. So we definitely attend a lot of those events too.
Very good. Well, we wanted to ask you a little bit more about your role as a virtual learning specialist at the IU8 and the World Learning Institute. This is something that I'm not familiar with. So could you share with our audience a little bit about what your role is there?
Sure. So a virtual learning specialist, essentially, kind of like it sounds, it's education online virtually. And this was a position prior to the pandemic. So it wasn't as a result of the pandemic. This was prior to. And essentially my role, and is actually, it is through IU8, which is out of Altoona. And we cover those 4 counties in that area. But my role is primarily to support the World of Learning Institute. And the World of Learning Institute is a virtual world language program. So we work primarily with rural schools, so small schools who are looking to expand offerings for their students with languages. Perhaps they have a student who's interested in Chinese, maybe they have a student interested in Arabic, but it doesn't warrant for them to hire a teacher, a full-time teacher. So or some schools lose a teacher halfway through the year, and we kind of provide a long-term sub situation. And all of our instruction is done virtually, again, even prior to the pandemic. So we actually teach in Zoom, and we meet with our students in Zoom so many times a week. And then the other days they work asynchronously on their coursework that we have created for them. But essentially, our goal is to provide authentic, relevant, and engaging world language education to students who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to get a world language. So again, so we offer Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French, Portuguese. I got to add that one in there. And I'm trying to think, German, Latin, and we are piloting this year American Sign Language, which we're really excited about. So yeah, so it's a really, yeah, there you go. So it is a really cool opportunity. Love my job. Love, love, love it.
Oh, that is so amazing to hear, especially it's just so important to learn about other languages and other cultures, especially at an early age. And I can only imagine this is helping you prepare to be a future principal. So, what are some improvements you feel that you can or should be made in public schools to better support some of your students? Not just with what you've been doing already, but maybe also including students with autism and other disabilities.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, although I'm studying to be a principal, I don't know if I'm quite there yet, sold on it. I do. I really love what I do now. I love the fact that I can teach a little bit, but yet support teachers and schools and students and work with administrators from other schools. But one of the things that I've learned even through just leadership classes, right, to become a principal, maybe someday, is the fact the importance of a positive school culture. I'm a really relational person, so I like to talk. I like to meet people. I like to get to know people. And I think that leads to a positive school culture. So whether your teachers need to be happy, right? Your students want to be happy. You want your community and parents to be happy. So what can you do to build relationships and build experiences that are enjoyable for all those with education? It's much more than just learning what's, the standards and this and that. There's so much more to schools. And I think people have learned that because of the pandemic. I'll be honest. I think people have really realized the value of what happens in a school. So my biggest thing I think would, if I were a school leader in a building, would be to create that positive school culture. So there is the excitement to go to school, to go to work every day, to really love what you do as a student, as a teacher. And how could we make that for everyone? Not just a selective group of teachers, not just a selective group of students, but how can we make that a positive experience for everyone? And I think it starts with, being kind, accepting, understanding, welcoming. While yes, I believe in standards and curriculum and all that other stuff that goes with it, I think that would be my priority, would be doing something like that.
That is so important. Oh, sorry, Megan. I was just going to say that is so important because a lot of times school can be a safe place for
Mhm.
students, even the ones who are struggling, and you would never know that they actually might enjoy school, but that can be the difference between a child's success and them falling behind, is having a safe place where they feel accepted and valued. So I am really excited for when you do become a future principal because you will be
Maybe.
awesome.
Yeah.
So glad that you brought that up, Fran, because oftentimes school is the one safe place that a child can go to feel support and have a community behind them. And that's something that a lot of teachers, just in the hustle and bustle of things, can forget sometimes, and not intentionally, but just
Right.
wanting kids to turn in their homework all the time and
Mhm.
wanting them to not be falling asleep in class. And sometimes we forget, just by being human, that there's some things that happen behind the scenes that we don't
We
understand. So
don't
that,
know. Mhm.
right. So
Yeah.
that positive school culture would be so beneficial for every single student that walks through your doors. But I'm also very interested, coming from your perspective as a special needs parent and a parent of a child with autism, being a principal, you would have a unique perspective coming into it, because you may not have the background in special education per se, but you have that real life experience with
Mhm.
raising a child with special education in their background. So you have probably learned a lot of valuable life lessons from being a parent. And I think that we can all learn about acceptance and inclusion by embracing disabilities as a culture and as a form of an identity of people. So, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years from just being Mia's mother?
Um, well, I'd start off by saying I think sometimes as parents of special needs children, we're often defensive. And I hate to make that generalization, but I feel like a lot of times that I've come across special needs parents or conversations, we come off very defensive. And I think there's a fine line of being mama bear, right? And then to the point where maybe we have to trust a little bit. We have to trust that there are some great individuals out there that really want the best for our children. And for me, that was hard to almost relinquish that and to trust. So I think it's really important to make parents understand, whether from a professional side, administrator side, a teacher side, really anybody working with children with special needs, and even as a parent, to understand that there are good people in this world. There are good people who want the best for your children too. They want to see your child's success. They're going to put in the effort to show that success, or to, give your child that success. So, one of the hardest lessons I've learned is to be trusting of that. But I've also learned with that, um, like you had mentioned, there's some people out there that just want to do XYZ and move on. And they might not make that extra effort that you wish you would hope from a parent. So I think that's where you kind of have to learn your situations. I am very fortunate, like you said, I've worked in education, and I have the ability to communicate and find colleagues who have probably more experiences in special education than I do, that I could talk to. So I think it's important. A lesson that I have learned is to find the people who can help you. So if you're in a situation, with your school, for example, as we're learning to navigate Mia to go into kindergarten, there's a lot of things that I'm learning about school-aged IEPs, and what are accommodations for school versus compared to what they were in preschool, or modifications. Like, what should we be thinking about? I don't know. Like, I've never been there. This is the first time I'm doing this. So it's really important to, one of the lessons is to find people who can help you. Find people who have been in this situation, maybe IEP coaches, maybe, a special ed teacher that you might know, a neighbor who works at the school. Like, hey, maybe you have a friend who has a son or daughter with an IEP. Hey, would you mind if I looked at it with you? Would you be willing to share that? Can I see what it looks like? Ask questions, like ask those people questions. I know I have learned so much because of that. And I'm always willing to learn, right? And I think you have to be the advocate for your child. You're the one that knows them best, but also trusting that they're going to do right by your child too. And when they don't, you can bring that mama bear. But I'm just kidding. But for the most part, I think understanding that you are part of a team. I will always say that. I will say that to any teacher, anybody we encounter. I want us to be a team. Maybe it's the sports in me, but I've always I don't want to be seen as the threatening parent. I don't want you to be scared that I'm going to sue you anytime. Like, I want to do my part. You do your part. Essentially, you tell me, Anita, you need to do this at home with her. I'm going to do it. Just like if I say, hey, can you do this at school with her? I would expect you to do it. So it's really the collaboration I've learned. there's a lot of collaboration with special needs children. You show up to an IEP meeting with 15 people. There is definitely a lot of collaboration. So in a roundabout way, there's my response. But so yeah, some of the biggest lessons I've learned is just acquiring knowledge, being collaborative, and getting my team, and being trusting that, your team is a good team.
And I think it can be really humbling to hear that even though you have all this experience in education, it can still be a very complicated and confusing
Yeah.
process for anyone.
Mhm.
And and with that comes a lot of the emotions too, of being just nervous or maybe hesitant. And those feelings are completely normal, but it sounds like you've been working through those really, really well by asking the questions and connecting and creating that community that you need to.
Yeah, it's really, and I imagine some parents feel this way too. When you go to an IEP meeting and there are so many people in there, right? It could get negative real fast. It really can. And sometimes I catch myself getting so emotional during those meetings. And one of the things that I've done personally is a few things. One, sometimes I'll record the meeting. If I know, I'll ask for permission. Hey, do you mind if I record this? And then this way I could stay attentive and take any other notes at home. Some of the other things I've done is sometimes I'll bring some information about Mia, like I'll put something together and kind of give her updates where she's at. And I always put a picture of her on it because I always want everybody to remember that that is who we're talking about. It's not me that we're talking about. It's not you that we're talking about. We're talking about that little girl and that little girl's needs. So again, those are just little things that I've learned along the way that I have found very helpful and valuable. So I could stay attentive, try to push those emotions aside. But if I do get emotional, I know I have a backup. Or I say to my husband, "Hey, can you take notes this time?" And we do it that way. So, yeah, so those are, again, some of the little things I've learned along the way.
Those are great. And as we talk about creating this community, we've learned more than ever in the last few years that online
Mhm.
communities can be very strong and helpful. So, what are some autism related blogs or social media accounts that you personally follow or would recommend?
Mhm. So yeah, so when Mia got diagnosed, I felt like I said, I needed my tribe, right? I needed people who have experienced this, have gone through this. So the first I looked locally. First, in Central PA Autism Community, Lindsay was the best help I could have ever found. And through her, I met other parents. But she was like, hey, here's where we go for speech, here's where we go for physical therapy, here's what we do this, here's what we go this. Just getting some names and acquiring that was really helpful. But then I also turned to social media a little bit. And I joined, not only did I join, locally, but I went to like a Pittsburgh. All of Mia's doctors are in Pittsburgh. So I kind of helped found that group on Facebook, like a Pittsburgh Moms of Special Needs. But then I don't use a ton of social media, but the social media I do use was primarily Instagram. And there were two accounts I started following. The first one is at the Spectrum Compass, and she's a mama, and she has some special ed background. Actually, she's a BCBA and an SLP. So she gave not only tidbits on things that she could do, but she also has a child now, actually a second child with special needs. So it was just comfort knowing that I wasn't going through this alone, kind of connecting. And not that I needed to post on everything she posted, but it was kind of nice knowing someone else was going through the same thing. And then the other one I followed, it's at Motherhood in Bloom. And she has a few different paths that she's taking now. But her story, again, her son is about Mia's age, which kind of was a cool connection. And she, again, same thing, very similar stories, similar things we were going through. But just recently, she's also going through some infertility issues. So she kind of has two different platforms now, but she is awesome. And she is very real, which I appreciate. There's no sugarcoating things. This is the real story. This is what happened today. It sucked, or hey, it went really well. And I can say, hey, that is a huge success. I get it. So those are the two accounts that I really follow on Instagram. I mean, I've also, for a period of time there, I kind of got away from leisurely reading. It was very much education, work, grad classes. You know how that goes. You were doing it for education, so you didn't really have the time to do it for leisure. But just recently, there are two books that I read that have really made an impact on me. The first book is called Unbroken Faith, and it's spiritual recovery for the special needs parent. and the author is Diane Doko Kim. And it is the kind of book any parent who just gets a diagnosis. Now, it is a Christian-based book, so I will kind of preface with that. It is kind of Christian-based, but it is the kind of book that a parent needs to read when they get a newly diagnosed um, child. I know for us, there's a lot of questioning, like, why me? Why my child? Why this? Like, what did I do wrong? Right? Did I eat something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Did I sit out in the sun too long? Like, what did I do? And there's a lot of blame. There's a blame game that you kind of go through. There's a denial phase you go through. And this author is just, she does a really good job of telling their personal stories, connecting with those feelings, the same feelings I went through, she went through. And then she rationalizes by saying, God didn't punish you. Um, Here's the scripture, right? In fact, this is his story. So for those that are maybe not so Christian based, or, or have a different path of faith, that might not be the book for me, but I know it was very powerful for me. And it led a lot of great conversations between my husband and I, our pastor. So it was kind of nice to have those conversations out loud. And then the other book, which I don't know if you guys have read, it's called What Color is Monday by Carrie Carrillo, I think, Carieelo. It is the most amazing book. I will tell you that right now. She is a mama of multiple children, one with autism, and she brings humor, like the best easy read. And I would recommend anyone working with autistic children or special needs children, but primarily autistic children, to read it. SLPs, paras, teachers. It's, first of all, it's an easy read. And two, it's funny, it's emotional. Like, oh, I cried on the first page. Like, I'll tell you, I bawled my eyes out on that first page, but I was able to laugh through it too and say, haha, yep, I went through that too. But then it's just like a roller coaster of emotions. And that is what real life is like with an autistic child. It is a roller coaster of emotions. And this mama went through it, and she tells it in a great way. So it's a short book. It's not too long, but if someone's looking for a read on the beach or something, or by the pool, super great one. Loved it. In fact, some of my family members have read it to get a little bit better understanding of Mia. So yeah, so those would probably be my two, I guess, suggestions, but What Colors Monday is definitely a good one.
Thank you for those recommendations. Francesca and I are always interested in diving into the perspective of a parent. And as SLPs, we really want to know what that other side looks like, and hopefully what it feels like, so that we can approach giving a diagnosis or being a part of the team.
Empathy, yes.
Empathy, exactly. And that leads perfectly into this next topic that we wanted to discuss with you about. If you're comfortable, could you walk us through what the thoughts and you spoke a little, you touched on it a little bit, but the thoughts and emotions that you and your husband experienced when you received the diagnosis, and maybe how your mindset has shifted throughout the years. So you mentioned a little bit of denial, and
Right.
what was that like from the beginning and then up to maybe her first few years of life?
Yeah, and I apologize if I get a little emotional on this one, but so we kind of noticed there was something off with Mia a little bit. Like I had mentioned, there was no language, there was no attending to her name. So we went to the ENT, right? Like, we were like, all right, let's rule out anything medical. We did that first. And then I remember going to the pediatrician on her 18-month appointment, and him saying to me, oh, there's no problem. Just read books to her. She'll pick up language. And I was like, that's a punch in my stomach, man. Like that, like, I read to my child every day, like multiple times a day. And I know in my gut there's something wrong. And you just kind of blew me off. So we said, you know what, though, that's your opinion. We still want the referral. And we did wait a little bit to get, first of all, for those parents going through this, know that there is a waiting process. There is, it does take a long time. There are some wait lists to get evaluated in, several hospitals. But so we waited probably about a year and a half to get me evaluated. We were on the waiting list for about a year. And then we just chose to wait a little bit because I was pregnant and I was an emotional wreck. And all the time we kind of thought it was autism based on our research. I remember my husband and I watching YouTube videos and going, oh, this is what she does. Oh no, but that's autism. No, that's not what she does. Like, we didn't quite understand that their kids are different, right? Like, we didn't know enough. But we knew there was something wrong, and we knew, you know what I mean? We knew going into that appointment what was going to happen. And I'll never forget, she did the ADOS, I'm sorry, the test. And they pulled out, for those of you that are not familiar with that, so they take out like little toys, right? Like, or activities, and they see how the child reacts with it, how they interact, they take them away, kind of monitor some things. And they presented Mia with a Jack in the Box. Mia has never played with a Jack in the Box, and she loved it. And she's cranking it, and she's loving it, she's playing with it. Time to take it away. Woo! She had a full-on meltdown, and my husband and I looked at each other, we're like, yep, this is it. And there was no coming back. They could never redirect her back to the rest of the assessment. That was 15 minutes into the assessment. So an hour went on. They tried to redirect her, bubbles, things that she would typically do. She couldn't get back to. She would not make any eye contact. She wouldn't do anything. So we waited. As most people might know, it's a really long day. You're tired, your child's tired, you're snacking all day long, and we just knew it. And we went in, and she's like, well, this is where she falls. This is where, and we didn't cry. We didn't cry then. But we got in the car then. I think everything was a blur from there. Like, she was like, well, this is what you could do, ABA therapy, da 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 da. And I'm like, I couldn't pay attention. There was no way. I thought, she's gonna give me these papers, I'll just look at it when I'm ready to look at it. We were already doing early intervention. We knew. But we got in the car and we both lost it. We both just, I don't know, just hearing that affirmation, like, hey, and our next concern was, the next question we said to each other is, what happens now? Like, what's her life going to be like? Is she ever going to be independent? We're not going to live forever. Like, are we going to be able to take care of her forever? So there's obviously a whole lot of things that go through your head. But once we settled down, we thought, all right, you know what? If anything else, we now have the possibilities to get her all the therapies in the world. We know now we have a lot to learn. We have a lot of people to meet, but we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right. So we did. We learned about ABA therapy, and it's also tough based on where you live, right? We live in a small rural area of Pennsylvania. Your services are kind of limited. And if you don't get in at the right time, you're on waiting lists, and Lord knows when you're going to, get those services. So we were very fortunate with, our support system, our parents, that we were able to get Mia into several therapies and to be able to do that stuff. So it is a really tough day. And I think sometimes, I know doctors have to give you that information, right? Like, I think they have to tell you, hey, this is what you should do next, and blah, blah, blah. But I think just almost like saying that diagnosis and then stepping out for a little bit, like, give us some time to even kind of think about it a little bit. Let us cry it out, right? Let us figure things out, and then come back in and talk to us. Or just say, hey, do you want to meet tomorrow? Or, hey, do you want to do this? Even though, like I said, we knew, until you hear those words. And I'll be honest, I think since then, we've grown very optimistic. I'll be very honest. And I think that's what I could tell to parents is, although it's a very shocking thing at first, and you do go through a lot of those questions and those emotions and, a lot of that, optimism is in sight. There's hope. More and more, there's college programs for children with autism and special needs. There's special schools. There's more and more therapies opening up because there's a need. So I think we have a lot of hope for an independent life, a good life. You hear these great stories of authors. And, my husband just sent me an article the other day of a PGA golf player who was diagnosed with autism. And the journalist that was following him had autism. So, like, there is a life there, and there is hope for independence. There is hope for all that. I just think it keeps us going. It keeps us saying, hey, put in the work, keep doing it, take her to the therapies, stay involved, give her the exposure. Yeah. So sorry for that a little bit, but I think there's a lot of emotions, but there's a lot to look forward to.
Right. And we really appreciate you sharing the raw emotions behind it. A lot of the self advocates that we've talked to about the diagnostic process for themselves, they've explained it as kind of a liberation or relief
Mhm.
or time to finally embrace who they are as human
Right.
beings. But on the flip side, a lot of parents do experience some of those emotions of coming to terms with what the future may look like. And it's because
Mhm.
parents want the best for their children. And like you said, historically, there has not been enough support for people with disabilities to become independent. But now things are getting better, and there is a more hopeful future for individuals because people are finally recognizing that they can contribute to society and they can be positive members of society too, and that they shouldn't be segregated and pushed away and kept separate. So
Right.
we really appreciate you sharing that because there are all different emotions that go into it, and every single one of them are valid as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I think one of the other things then too is we got pregnant with Lincoln and we weren't kind of planning that. And one of the things then obviously too is how does that affect Lincoln, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Wonder or have read the book. But the sister of the child with special needs goes through a lot of emotions too, growing up. And I think that was after we watched that movie, we said, we promise to always support Lincoln too. It's not just the child with special needs. I think we have to understand that he's going to have needs too as a sibling of a special needs child and what he might have to endure. So there's a lot of emotions that go with that too, with raising a neurotypical child in a household with a child with special needs and understanding that they're different, but they're going to have certain their specific needs too as a sibling. So that was really important to us.
And I also wanted to recognize too that not just the diagnosis and the process of that is very difficult, but like you said, you had felt frustrated and angry because you felt like you were being dismissed by another professional.
Right.
And that buildup over time can be extremely stressful. So I can't even imagine the mix of emotions you must have felt throughout that entire thing and still to this day. And it's just such a natural response for most people to have, and it's okay to be emotional and to feel those things because it's a huge deal.
Right.
And at least you were being very respectful and responsive of not just Mia's needs but Lincoln's as well. It just goes to show everyone that as a parent you are very, very responsible and caring for your children. And I love this topic of optimism as well, because a lot of people just take for granted that optimism is just a thing that people are born with or not born with, but it's actually a muscle that takes time to build and to build that resiliency. And I really love that you are already thinking about her future and what are some goals that she might achieve for herself. So I wanted to delve a little bit into that and see what are the things that she's interested. Does she talk about wanting to be an astronaut, or does she really love horseback riding? What are some of the things that you hope to achieve with her as she gets older?
Yeah, I think she has, it depends on the month, right? Like her interest there, she's very much like a neurotypical toddler, or, you know what I mean, young child. Like they go through cycles of interests. So she actually kind of again lightened mommy's heart. But about a month or two ago, she said to me, "Mommy, can we play school?" And I was like, "Yes, we can play school." And it's great because she's modeling a lot of the things that she goes through at school. Like, let's go to music class and let's do nap time. Sure, I'll do nap time. Or she'll kind of do, oh, it's circle time, and she wants to be the teacher. So I that like kind of intrigued me a little bit. But I think as parents, I think our role is just to expose her to a lot. And then she can kind of create her own path. So we've tried to organize sports. She may have a passion in some kind of sport. So she's done t-ball. We've done t-ball. We've done soccer. She loves swimming. So do we ever, her dad and I were athletes, but that doesn't mean she necessarily has to be an athlete. She loves music. She loves to sing. So, she's practicing her Christmas songs for that, recital already in December. So I don't know. She kind of just cycles through. There's some months, like a year or two ago, she was interested in dinosaurs. So we would take her, as soon as she tells us she's interested in something, we will find an opportunity to expose her a little bit more. And she might not ever remember that. Like, I know she's 4 and we probably go overboard, I'll be honest. At the age of 4, 5, and 6, taking her to all these places, but we want to expose her. So, even if it's the dog's vet appointment, we'll take her in there and say, this is what the vet does. Here's some of the, tools that they use, what they are for. So I just think it's a value to do that. And then she can kind of pick her own path. Lately she's into helping mommy with chores. By all means, let's do that. So it kind of cycles through, but we just encourage any expression she has of an interest, right? That's what's valuable to us. The fact that she's expressing an interest in something, we're like, all right, let's go with it. So that's kind of where we're at. She's always loved like cartoons and animation. So we haven't really gone into real, I guess, characters, right? And things like that. So she's still into animation, but again, some of her peers are as well. That's kind of typical for some kids that age. So I'm not too concerned with it, but yeah, so we just kind of go with the flow around here.
Yeah, I think that's really neat that as parents, you give her those different unique opportunities to explore different means of expression and different interests and expose her to all different things because you're not putting her in any certain box
Right.
because she has autism, that you're
Mhm.
not saying, well, this is the life for you. You're letting the options be open and be broad for her. And I
And
think
I would even say like families who may not, be able to do all that, right? I like we've always even done books, right? Taking her to the library, even if you're not sure about bringing your child to a quiet library, maybe talking to the library, hey, do you mind if we come a half hour before you open or something like that in the evening? Or maybe they pick out books for you. That has always kind of been, if we couldn't get somewhere, for example, like we can't get to Paris today, so let me get a book that talks a little bit about Paris, the culture, the scenes, the sights. So I have found that is very helpful too. Just books, even something as simple as that, and exposing. But yeah.
yeah, and the options are limitless when you read a book about camping or glamping. You can up a little fort in your house and pretend that you're
Yeah, exactly.
you can make it pretty interesting even if you're not you don't have the means to go and explore in all different places. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that because I think that's a really helpful suggestion for parents that are listening. A big underlying theme that I noticed throughout our conversation is that the difficulties that parents face with their children with autism or the barriers that often are presented, it's much because of our community around us not embracing and empowering individuals with autism.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you share, practical ways that the average person can embrace and empower and accept people with autism on a day to day basis?
Oh, I think that's such an important question. And truly, I think one of the things we can do is as parents even talking to our children, and telling them, and making them understand that everyone's different, whether they have an autism diagnosis or not. Skin color is different, hair color is different, mannerisms are different, the way we play is different. Taking them to the playground, if one kiddo wants to play this, one kiddo wants to play this, that's okay. Just modeling a lot of those behaviors, and not just talking the talk, walking the walk is really important. So I think that is truly important as parents we can do. I know as a concerned parent of a child going into kindergarten, she's going to be in a regular ed classroom, a mainstream classroom. And that is one of my fears is, what's student A going to go home and tell mommy and daddy about Mia? And then how do they respond back to that? Could I send home a paper in model language? Yeah, but ultimately I'm not the parent. It is to the choice of the parent to have that conversation with their own child. Well, I know the teacher is going to have those conversations of being kind in classroom, but ultimately it's the parent, right, who's around that child more. So I am concerned about that, about those conversations, and do they happen enough? So, and then as far as the community, I always like to see communities like, we don't live too far from State College. I know there's some coffee shops that employ special needs adults, right? I think that's awesome. I think, and that's one of the things that Matt and I, especially my husband, Matt, he likes to like do his own little research, and he doesn't tell me until he finds something really good, but he'll always see like what some parents do to support that independent lifestyle for their children. So we've seen like parents who have started a t-shirt business, and their child has that role in there, and they do something part of that business. So we're always like, oh, what kind of business can we start? What kind of, can we do that for Mia? Can we do that for other special needs children? Our community has done a really good job with sensory events. Now they've done a really good job. Like our dance studio has sensory friendly classes. Our local community center has fundraised, and they just put it in last year, accessible playground equipment. And that was a big deal, not just for Mia, but for all the children in the community. That was really powerful. It sent a really great message to the community. So I just think communities like that in general need to look to include everyone, make it as inclusive as possible. Whether it's the boxes you have to check off for a business, right, to make it accessible, but also emotionally, how do you make it acceptable? How are you understanding? How are you looking at people? Or, instead of, judging a mom the way she's reacting to a child with a meltdown, just be like, I get you, mama. What can I do to help you? Or, like something like that. Like, hey, I've been there, done that. I got you. No judgment here. So just simple things like that. I don't think it takes much. I really don't. I don't think it takes much. So we'll see. We hope for a better future, right? All communities, big communities, small communities, understanding, being kind, just teaching that to our kiddos.
Absolutely. And our hope through this series is that even parents that, or people in general that don't have a direct relation to autism or disability might come across this, and they can open their minds and open their hearts to some different experiences that they may not have been exposed to. So we really appreciate you taking the time. We thank you so much for sharing all of the raw, vulnerable sides of the story, and also the hopeful and exciting things that you have to look forward to in your family. We just thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, guys. Truly a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, if you're watching this today and you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, you can reach out to Anita about her future projects. You can email her at anitayoung0914@gmail.com. You can follow her on Twitter at anitayoung914. And you can visit the Central PA Autism Community website if you're interested in some of those sensory-friendly events that are coming up. That's centralpaautism.weebly.com. And you can also find the World of Learning Institute website at worldoflearninginstitute.com and on Instagram at World of Learning Institute. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday. Thank you for listening to Spectrum Sundays. We are your hosts, Miss Pennsylvania Megan Sinisi.
And Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands. Please make sure to subscribe to our series and follow us on social media to stay connected to autism professionals and self-advocates.
And remember, true impact is accomplished through active listening and exploring the world through a variety of perspectives.
Join us next week on Spectrum Sundays to help cultivate a community of inclusion, appreciation, and acceptance around autism.